Good morning. It's John Hauser, world famous intellectual. Thank you for watching. I'm here today to give you some great information. Have you ever wondered, how do I become a world famous intellectual? What steps do I need to take to become world famous? Well, that's what I'm going to be discussing in this and a few additional videos. I'm going to give you a free course at no charge. Unlike other people on YouTube, they want you to subscribe, they want you to buy their course, they want you to watch 30 minutes, 35 minutes just to get the answer. No. I'm here to tell you how to become a world famous intellectual in just a few easy lessons. And I say a few because I'm not quite sure of how many videos I'm going to make. But I'm here to tell you that I am going to tell you how to become a world famous intellectual. You can do this in your spare time. You can do this at home. And you can do this for a very low cost. I mean, it's not going to cost you almost nothing to become a world famous intellectual. Being an intellectual is not that difficult. I meet many people who are not intellectual at all. You ask them a question, they go, duh, what? Ask them a question. Well, how long have you been working here? No, I'm going to teach you in just a few easy steps how to just be an intellectual and how to become world famous. And again, I'm going to do this at no charge. Now, let's start with probably one of the easiest ways to become an intellectual. I know this is going to shock you when you see it, but one of the easiest ways to become an intellectual is to read. Now, this book here will help you tremendously. The name of this book, I'm going to bring it up slowly so you can see it. The name of this book here is called The Know-It-All. This is absolutely a great, humorous book that will help you. When I first read this book, I saw this book on the shelf and I'm like, The Know-It-All, that sounds vaguely familiar. I'm trying to think, now who do I know that is a know-it-all? And I went, oh, it's me. I am one of those know-it-all type people. I'm one of those people that if I get into a conversation, my brain is constantly working. It won't slow down. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, we went to breakfast with some friends, some old friends. And if you've seen the title of my site here, it's Free Advice from 76 Years. In this category, all of my friends are old. Now, we do have a few young friends, but, they don't associate with us much because they're friends. But, we checked it off. They're on Facebook. They're our friends, right? But not really. Now, we have a few old friends we hang out with, and we went to breakfast yesterday morning at Denny's. Denny's has a good breakfast. I had this huge omelet, had all kinds of good stuff in it. So it's the four of us. It's me and my wife and JD and Carla, their husband and wife. They have been married since about 1865 when the Civil War ended. And they can actually tell you some of the things that took place right after the Civil War. Wonderful people. But we got to talking about food. And Carla was talking about food and different types of food. And here I am over there. Now, you have to remember, I'm this terrible intellectual that's constantly trying to relate to what people are saying. And sure enough, as we were talking about food, I asked her, and I asked JD, have you ever had the experience when you sit down and you eat some Chinese food, and even though it's really good and tasty, about 30 minutes to an hour later, you feel hungry again, almost as though you hadn't eaten? Now, I don't know if you've had that experience with Chinese food, but there have been many times when I sit down and eat Chinese food, and about an hour later, I don't really feel like I've eaten anything. So I asked them, I said, have you had this experience where you eat Chinese food? And they go, well, yeah, as a matter of fact, we have had that experience where we eat Chinese food, and then later on, we don't feel like we've eaten anything. And you have to remember now, I brought this into the conversation because I'm the intellectual, right? So I said to them, I said, well, this is the exact reason that Chinese TV programs never made it in the United States. You watch a Chinese TV program, and an hour later, you don't feel like you watched anything. Okay. Whoa. that was that was a whole, that was a whole lot of talking about nothing. So anyhow, here's a great book that I want to recommend to you. If your intention is to become a world famous intellectual, you're going to have to take certain steps. Now, remember, I said it doesn't cost much. You can go to your public library and check this book out, and it won't cost you anything because, the public library is free. You just have to step over the homeless people sleeping on the sidewalk and walk by the drug addicts before you can get into the door of the local library. But here's the author's name. Here's the name of the book, and it's called The Know-It-All. Now, this is a story, a true story, of somebody that really wanted to know everything. So, I didn't write this book. I read it and enjoyed it. As a matter of fact, I probably told you this in one of my other videos, that whenever I read a book, I will take a book and I will date it as to when I read it. So this one's not been that long ago. I read this August the 8th of 2021, just recently. And I don't think I paid a lot for it. I buy used books. You can go to the thrift store. I got to have some tea. Hold on. Nothing. And by the way, the other thing about being an intellectual is you have to learn the proper way to make tea. And I will do a video on the proper way to make tea. But you have to, I know it says coffee on the cup, but this is actually hot tea. It says oolong tea. If you don't know what oolong tea is, if you don't know what oolong tea is, then you cannot qualify as an intellectual. So you have some things to learn. This is a Star Wars cup. My kids got me this cup for Christmas a few years ago. Along with drinking hot tea, I am also a coffee drinker. Because as an intellectual, you have to learn how to go to a coffee shop and make a coffee last 2, 3, 4 hours. Because you may be in conversations that long. Now, it could get expensive if you bought multiple coffees. Just buy one coffee, sit there and talk to your friends, and sip it very slowly. Yes, it's going to get cold and nasty, but there's no need to spend, $3 or $4 or $5 more on a coffee when you can make that one last a long time. And by the way, you look very intellectual when you're sitting in a coffee shop and you're talking to other intellectuals who are also very intellectual. Although I'm usually the only one in the room that is truly world famous. Most of those people are just famous in their own hometown. But me, but anyhow, that's the purpose of the video. So now let's get back to the book. So in this book, this gentleman here, he's called The Know-It-All. And when I saw this book, I like, boy, that just sounds so familiar. So I picked this book up and I started to read it. And I really identified with the author. Because the author has the same problem that I have. The author wants to know everything. So what did he do? The author took the entire Encyclopedia Britannica, and read all the volumes. I think there's like 26 volumes. He read every single volume, and he commented on the volumes as he goes through this book. It becomes hugely, hugely humorous. I mean, it's really funny. If you just open the book up here, excuse me while I look down to, I know you're not supposed to look away from the camera, but I didn't claim to be perfect. I just claimed to be an intellectual. So you go past the introduction, and, whoa, man, these guy wrote a long introduction here, several pages. There's 33 pages in the introduction. This is strange. I'm going to get over here, and I know I'm taking too long, so I apologize. We're almost there. Okay. To give you an idea, he starts each chapter with a letter that you would find in the Encyclopedia Britannica, and then he gives you a quick synopsis. And on this one here, he talks about cappuccino. I think that is spelled Cappuccino. He says, every once in a while, I'll know something more about a topic than the Britannica does, such as the case with cappuccino. I happen to know the cappuccino got its name from the Capuchin monks. I didn't know that. Even though I'd read this book, I forgot. The Capuchin monks, Capuchin, Capuchin monks, whose robes were light brown, the same color as coffee steamed with milk. Hence, cappuccino. This fact was not in the Britannica. I learned this from a. Listen to this. He says, I learned this from an Italian cab driver when Julie and I went on vacation to the Amalfi Coast last year. It's a little thrill to feel like I've got the edge on the Britannica, a feeling that vanishes quickly in the ensuing pages as I'm reminded of my epic ignorance. So he learned that the true origin of the cappuccino came from these Capuchin monks, and he learned this from an Italian cab driver. Now, it has been my experience that sometimes cab drivers are highly intellectual. If you watch some of my other videos, you also know that I drive for Uber, and I do it part-time. I went out and drove around yesterday and made about $100. Oops, I wasn't supposed to tell you that. Driving around. Here's a book I want to recommend to you. It's called The Know-It-All. My daughter asked me one time, she said, is it like that movie with Mel Gibson, Conspiracy Theory? That did happen to me recently. I was just chattering along and driving. I looked in the back seat and I'm like, when did they get out? Anyhow, go to the letter P. I can't even pronounce the word that he's talking about here at the letter P. So I have to skip that because I can't pronounce it. I want to recommend this book to you. It's called The Know-It-All. If you're truly interested in becoming a world-famous intellectual, you must read. You must read often. You must read books. And you must reread those books. So here it comes from John Hauser giving out free advice. Get a book and read it and become a world-famous intellectual. And in future videos, I'm going to talk about this just a little further on how to become a world-famous intellectual.